Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Monday, May the 6th, 2019. Kelly, would you take roll, please?
Okay. Gordon Perry,
Here.
Bruce Polly,
Here.
Ron Edwards,
Here.
Chad Kiger,
Here.
and Lori Gross. Here.
Everybody is here tonight. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to look at last month's meeting notes and so forth? And if so, and there's no questions or whatever, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes carry. We have two items of business tonight. We've got the Lebanon Elks Club and Rose Investment. So the first item will be docket number 19-11, the Lebanon Elks, 635, requesting a conditional use approval to install an electronic message board sign to be located at 215 Lafayette Avenue. The property is located in the Neighborhood Business and Thoroughfare Overlay District, and that's their zoning clarification. Mr. Ben, would you take over?
Good evening, board members. I'll walk you through some of the highlights of this application. We'll let the applicant speak a little bit about what they're intending to do here, and then we'll answer any questions you have. So just the basics of the request here. Electronic message board signs in the neighborhood business zoning classifications are a conditional use. So inherently, it's an acceptable use, but because of the zoning district and some of the uses that are typically seen in and around this area, it's required to come to the board to perhaps establish conditions that may be necessary within the zoning classification. Thus, the need for the conditional use request tonight. So, if they pull up the screen here, you can see here, this is the existing elk sign. So this is the installation of a sign, but really what they're doing, as you'll see here, is they're just replacing the existing sign face with an electronic message board sign, you see here, and then putting a top cap on the sign. Elk Club Lebanon. So it's the same sign frame. They're just replacing that sign face with an electronic message board and adding that top cap to it. So location won't change. The size will change slightly because of the top cap. Otherwise, it's essentially the same sign. You can see here on the site plan, which is, sorry, this is going to be to the side. For those of you familiar with this site, but you can see the existing sign sits out by the street in this location here. And north is actually to the left on this one. I'm not able to switch it for you without changing every other page. So that's the general nature of the request there. They're using the existing sign base. They're just swapping out that sign face for electronic message board sign. One thing that we looked at as we looked at this is there are some residents in the area, and I know that in their application they already alluded to this, that they're willing to either dim the sign as it gets towards evening and then turn it off overnight. We agree with them because there's residents in the area we'd like to see that happen, so that we're causing as minimal interference with the neighbors as possible. Just for reference, there are six criteria that have to be addressed as part of a conditional use application. And in one area we did mention, because it's in a neighborhood, we don't want to affect the use of that area for those neighborhoods. So they've proposed to dim the sign before and after dusk and then turn it off after hours. So as you can see, as we get to the staff report, we have recommended approval of the conditional use, but we did establish the following condition, and that would be that the sign be turned off from the hours of 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then dimmed before 8 a.m. and after 8 p.m. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any for me.
Do you know by chance how many looms this sign will be putting out?
I don't off the top of my head. I think they'll have to address that.
Okay. Any other questions for Ben? Okay. Is somebody from the Elks here that can give us some information?
Hi, my name is Mark Gehring. We looked into getting a message board sign We don't really, the question was how many lumens was it? We got a couple quotes from a couple companies to start off with to see what we're looking at. And right now, we're, you know, I guess the top line Cadillac sign with the LED with pictures, it was out of the realm of our budget. You know, they were wanting upwards of close to $20,000 for one of those signs. And we're going to scale back just enough to get a message out, what events we're going to take place. We have tried all kinds of traditional advertising, newspaper, social media, the radio, and we don't really feel like we're getting to our target audiences of what happens at the club. You know, some of the charitable events that take place, you know, have a big cancer auction coming up this weekend. And if we could target some of the people that don't read the paper or read the paper, don't read the ads, don't subscribe to our social media pages, maybe we could reach those people, you know, and maybe, you know, give a boost to the club, give a boost to our events that we take place that, you know, we feel that benefit, you know, the city of Lebanon. You know, we hold the youth soccer shoot, the youth hoop shoot, and it would be nice to get a little more support. And we're running out of ideas on how to reach the public. It don't seem like, you know, the newspapers are, you know, I guess as effective as they used to be. So that's our intention behind the sign, you know, to get a little more focus on what goes behind closed doors at the club. It's more than just a bar, what a lot of people think. It's more, we have events that are open to the public. You know, we have dinners on certain nights of the week and things like that. And that's really our intention. And we want to be good stewards to the neighborhood, you know, and not offend people, not bother people with it, don't have a big flashing, you know, display out there at all hours of nights. There's no reason that this thing needs to be, you know, full bore brightness, you know, after dark. And there's no reason why it needs to be on, you know, after we close. And now we proposed a 11 o'clock shutdown time on it. We think that's pretty reasonable.
Any questions?
Any of the quotes that you got have, the signs have the ability to adjust the brightness based on the ambient conditions?
Mm-hmm.
So adjusting the brightness is one thing, but the outside adjusts its own brightness. So do any of those signs have the ability to react to what is going on outside as opposed to just setting a brightness?
As far as the dawn and dusk
Certain times of
time?
the year, you know, it might be overcast.
Right.
You know, other times it's sunny, it gets dark earlier. Does it have the ability to
I'm not
adjust
aware
it?
of that from the, and I would imagine, you know, those signs that we first looked at, you know, because we always want to try to get the biggest, you know, and the best, and then we're got a little sticker shock on that. And the salesperson did not mention, you know, for the ambient, but he did mention we could set, you know, on the, you know, by clock, on a schedule, you know, on a repeating schedule by day, the dimness and the on and off times on that. And it would be automatic. There wouldn't have to be anybody there to do that. Most of the controls now are web-based, so, you know, even if there was something that we needed to shut it off, you know, we could do that remotely. We don't have to be on site to do it, you know, as well.
How often would the messaging change?
You mean like the different type of message, you know, as it scrolled through? I think that would depend on the schedule of events that we have going on. You know, certain times of year we have quite a bit of, you know, events scheduled. Sometimes we don't. A lot of times in the summertime we slow down on the events because of the attendance, because everybody has summer plans. We usually pick up a little bit of those, you know, in the fall and start slacking off, you know, in the spring. So,
We know the speed on Lafayette Avenue, speed limit, how fast that traffic's moving.
I believe it's 30.
My concern would be that that messaging changed too fast, it could be distracting.
Well, I don't think we would want it to change too fast, because, from Main Street, up to there, we'd want it on long enough so people can actually see the message without just scrolling through rapidly.
Right.
So you're saying that everything is set on a timer to turn down the brightness and turn it off at night and so
Absolutely,
forth?
and that's one of our criteria when we do select the certain sign that we can afford to get.
Okay, that's good. Because sure as world, somebody, oh, I forgot to turn it off last night, and,
Right.
things happen, so. Okay, any other questions?
What would be the brightness standards? I know we talked about dimming, but, I mean, dim could mean one thing to you, one thing to me, in terms of actual brightness of the sign.
And that's a great question, and I cannot answer that, but I would think that it would be within reason of what we would expect if it was across the street from our own homes. That's about the best answer I can give you right now, as far as lumens and things like that with contrast of the darkness level outside. We didn't really study that. And the two salespeople we talked to, two companies we talked to didn't bring that up either. But they did, they were pretty, I guess, intent on the ability for these signs to be scheduled in to be dimmed, scheduled in to be turned on and off.
Do we have any other standards for the other signs similar to this in town?
I don't know that I have any specific light levels, but we obviously have the light ordinance that requires it to be a certain brightness once you get to the property lines, and certainly across from residential. My guess is this sign's not going to be that bright. Those are usually, your street lights and your parking lot lighting. Those are a lot brighter than these signs can get. This is something we could work with them and kind of field verify once it's in and figure it out. And certainly if a neighbor calls and says it was really bright, then we know we need to kind of take a look and
I know
figure
the
out.
newer LED signs are a lot brighter.
Yeah,
They can be.
Yeah,
than-
they can be,
Than the
certainly.
older technology.
Ben, didn't we do something like this with the Popeyes chicken place up on the road where they put in an electronic board after they built their facility? I want to say that there was something before the BZA about an electronic board. I could be wrong, but
I know they have an electronic message
They-
board. I'd have to look and see whether there's discussion about brightness related to it.
okay.
I'm not familiar with that one, but I can look into it.
How do we, on the brightness, because what Chad had mentioned with the LED being brighter and stuff, how do we move this forward and letting the city and the Elks Club, determine this brightness level? It's great that it'll dim and it'll turn off and all that kind of stuff, but obviously this brightness is, the amount of lumens or whatever is how do we keep this moving for them, so that it doesn't have to come back here?
Yeah, I think my biggest, the biggest hurdle is even a lumen level on different signs could look different and be different and appear different in terms of brightness. So this is almost one where we're going to have to field verify, work with them once they get it installed to figure out what seems most appropriate so it doesn't seem to be impacting the neighbors. I can double check on the Popeyes, see if there were specific brightness levels that were discussed, and see. Of course, I don't think that sign's on right now since they're not open, but I can check on that. But even the lumen levels, depending on the types of bulbs and types of, certainly some of the newer signs may seem bright even though the lumen level is at a certain level. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer to that question. I know I totally understand that. My best recommendation right now is we field verify with them in the evening once it gets dark and figure out what's most appropriate.
Does the city attorney have any, I'm just trying to figure out how to, at some point, we're going to have a motion here, and in addition to the recommendations and the things that are in the staff report. Go ahead.
Excuse me, I think the last meeting we had on the car wash, oh, they're gonna have some lighting out there, it's gonna be lit at night, but they're going to have, like a shield they put over them. So, and I know that on that sign, you would want everybody to see it, going north and south on Lafayette, so.
Yeah, and specifically on the car wash, we're primarily looking at the parking lot lights.
Right.
Making sure they were shielded. I'd have to read.
If these,
Do we do light studies, illumination studies?
We have the ability to measure light levels, so we can always take a look at that from the street and make sure that it's not exceeding our light limits, and that may help us determine exactly how to adjust. But that wouldn't necessarily need to be part of the motion. They're required to meet our light standards no matter what, so that's one way we could address it, just make sure from the street that it's meeting our light. My guess is it will. This is another one of those things where you'll be able to see the lights, but it's probably not going to exceed our light levels. It actually takes quite a bit of light to exceed the light levels, even though it's visible light. So, but that is one thing we definitely can do, is we can take our light measuring tool out there and make sure we're not exceeding those levels.
See, the one thing that I don't want to say haunts me, but when you're at the park and that LED sign that the hospital has, I mean, obviously you can't read it from the park, but you can sure see those red and blue lights as they're changing, and it makes you think, it's the police car or something, and that's what I go back, and I think that's too bright for what the Elks Club wants, but I don't know how to monitor it. And I think there needs to be something in a motion, but I don't know how you would want to word
They
it.
haven't decided on a sign yet, so we're just
Well-
approving the conditional use of a sign. We don't even know what the sign's gonna look like.
they are.
It's going to be pretty close to the one they got right there, though. And I understand that.
Yeah, well, in terms of,
Right.
light intensity.
One thing about the type of sign, a couple companies didn't really want to talk to us about get us a quote, putting in the time, to do the research on what it would take to get a sign to fit into that brick structure. Because a lot of them said, well, when we told them we had to get a conditional use variance, they said, well, talk to us after that. So we are kind of limited on our selection right now, and we're limited on a couple companies pending the approval or denial of this request. And once we get through tonight, if we get approved, and then we're going to start calling different companies and getting quotes on what. And right now, I think we're not going to get the latest and great. It's going to be more like something you would see at a school, and with just probably a few lines of maybe a tricolor sign, which is that technology is getting pretty old now. It's still LED. It's still be able to scroll messages, but I don't think we're going to be able to have the ability to post pictures, with the newer, LED message signs, the bright blues and the reds like you were talking about. 'Cause we already looked into that, and we found very quickly that is something that we couldn't justify spending that amount of money on.
Ben, is there any, how do we research this? Is there other towns or IAC or, some of the city and town associations that,
I can certainly look into that. Most address, just general lighting levels at property line. I'm not currently aware that anybody's addressed the lighting standard for electronic message board. It's more of a general light intensity of property lines, make sure that they're getting to a certain level. Many communities do, in some way, shape, or form, address how often the sign can scroll through, making sure
How
it's not
fast
any
it
more
takes
frequently
to-
than 15 seconds or 30 seconds that could change. Although I think there's some more recent research that suggests that it's not any more or less distracting to drivers since they're half the time they're on their phones anyway. But yes, there are a lot of communities do address, every 15 or every 30 seconds is the quickest that it could scroll to a new message.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Any other questions?
I think we could add a condition as well, saying that it would be subject to the light test after it's installed, or up to, subject to city approval on the light levels from the dusk till 11 PM, if that's something that we'd want to add in.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
My preference would be that it would follow the sun, so to speak, and that not a set time, seeing as that throughout the year, it gets darker earlier, and 11 PM can seem a lot later in the wintertime than it does in the summer.
Sure.
Thank you, Ben. This is a public meeting. Anybody from the audience care to voice their approval or disapproval or anything? It's open to the public right now. Yes, sir. You need to come up to the,
I'm Russell Roberts. We were just thinking there are some other signs like that around town. I think one of them's out there at the 4-H ground. And of course, the hospital sign. And I've seen others, I can't think where they are, but there might be some places where there is a sign in place where you might get an idea just by driving by and see what it looks like at night. Then inquire what they're using.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Also a billboard one, just past.
anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public end of the meeting. Any discussion or questions for anybody?
What was your addition to the motion? Can you say that again?
I was saying that we could either have it be subject to a light level test that Ben discussed, or we could do it additional condition saying that it'd be approved following, subject to, looking at and seeing how it presents based on the sign that they do choose.
Could you add just staff recommendation?
That's-
With a condition that
Yeah.
we would have a light study. Yeah, that would allow them to continue to
Yeah.
get more bids.
Okay. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 1911, docket 1911, with staff recommendations of, what'd that say?
The first one is the sign will be turned off from the hours of 11 PM to 6 AM and dimmed before 8 AM and after 8 PM. And then also subject to a light level test by the city.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, and we have a second. Kelly, would you take roll, please?
Gordon Perry,
Aye.
Bruce Polly,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Good luck.
I have a check for you from a recent publication. Do I give that to you by here or bring it back?
Ben, probably.
This guy right here.
Ben takes all kinds of money.
Just make sure that it gets,
I don't take checks.
Got a big coin.
Yeah, right.
Good luck. Thank you. Our last item tonight is docket number 19-12, Sean Baker for Rose Investments LLC. The subject property is located at 1501 Indianapolis Avenue, which is currently, I believe, Robert's Farm Equipment. Subject property is zoned planned business commercial and within the thoroughfare overlay and comprises of 6.7 acres. Ben.
Very good. Okay. I'll walk through this as a use variance request. This is right now, the location of the Reynolds Farm Equipment. As you guys are all aware, they're getting ready to start construction on a new facility further south on Indianapolis Avenue. And so this property has been available for lease or sale for a little while now. And we have the applicant tonight, Rose Investments LLC, is also known as Amston Trailer. They're a trailer sales and service company that's currently located in Indianapolis. They are currently landlocked where they're located and have been looking for a period of time now for a place where they can kind of unbuckle their pants, if you will, and expand a little bit here. They do like the location. It's got some visibility on a main corridor. It's also got good access to the interstate, something they were looking for. So the reason for the use variance request is that this type of use actually isn't specifically outlined in our use table. There's a couple of use categories that it could fall under, but it's not really clearly defined. And anytime where you have a use that's not clearly defined in the use table, it is a use variance request. Also, because of the location on one of our main thoroughfares and a thoroughfare overlay, a use like this would be required as a use variance. So it falls under the same type of use classifications as something like Reynolds Farm or the tool rental places along this corridor. Those are all uses that would require this type of approval when they're looking new. The request for you tonight is just for the use variance. They are going to be making some improvements to the property that may require additional variance requests. Those will come to you at a later meeting, likely the next meeting. They're still working on getting that design done with their engineer, and they really didn't want to put a whole lot of effort into that until they were for sure that you guys felt that the use was appropriate at this site. The improvements they'll make, as you can see here on the site, actually you probably can't see very well because the writing's not showing up where it's dark, but they've just really generally outlined how they intended to use the property. As you can see here, there's a number 1 on this first building. That's their sales office. Number 2 is kind of a parts center and drive-up window. Number 3 here, this will be used for storage. Number 4 here, this building is their service building. And then what you really can't see very well because of the green, it's not showing up here, is that this will be the area that they will store the trailers, their inventory. They will be required to both to install surface to store on. They're not able to surface on grass. They are looking to pave a portion of this and then gravel the rest. If that is how it turns out, then they'll be coming back to you for a variance request. The main part of this, though, is that they'll have to install detention with any of that additional surface here. It's going to require detention in this area that doesn't exist now in any way, shape, or form. So it'll improve this area quite a bit. In terms of the actual use variance request, I'll just make reference to the findings of fact in the staff report. Just looking at a couple of specific things, this property has historically been used for uses like this. Obviously, Reynolds Farm Equipment is the most recent use there. They've got all varieties of farm equipment up to the largest equipment stored out there. They do service on the property. This is a very similar type of use, just a different type of equipment that they're selling and servicing. So the use that they're proposing is very much how this has been used historically. In terms of the comprehensive plan for this area is a classification of mixed-use commercial industrial. That's kind of how this corridor is developed already anyway. So this type of land use would be permitted in that land use classification. So they are proposing something that would be appropriate. So just a reminder again, this is not approving the specific design and improvements they're planning to make the property. At this time, this is just the use variance. So this is just saying that this is an appropriate use, and then they'll come back to you later and look at those specific design and improvement elements that they're considering and see whether those variances are appropriate at that time. Staff recommendation, staff recommends approval of the variance of use request to permit a trailer sales and service use within the planned business commercial. Zoning classification is subject to the following condition, and that would be that the variance of use is limited to those trailer sales and service uses proposed by the applicant. Any change in use or increase in the intensity of the use by the current or any subsequent owners will require approval by the City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals. And that just basically means we're limiting it to this applicant and to this use, and any significant change will be come back to you for review. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just sales, Ben, or they manufacture?
I believe they do some minor fabrication, but they're not building trailers here, but they do a lot of service. So from that perspective, there's a heavier use there from a service perspective.
And the current zoning again is?
I'm sorry?
The current zone, or the current zoning,
It's plain business commercial.
but it doesn't,
It would stay the same zoning, it just changed a use.
Yeah, correct. The zoning classification will stay the same. This is just an approval for this specific use on this property.
because it's not clearly defined in the, trailers are not,
It's,
trailer.
our definitions need to be cleared up a little bit. Typically, a use like this falls under recreational vehicle, but our definition doesn't include trailers like this. So our definitions probably need just a little bit of cleanup, but because this was not specifically defined, it comes to you. But uses like this, like recreational vehicle storage and sales, truck vehicle storage and sales and service, those are uses that aren't permitted in a classification like this.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Baker, or would you step forward and tell us a little bit?
Move up here with me. I'm the general manager here locally, so I can answer any questions about the property itself, our business, what we're going to do to the property. Michael was actually a third-generation owner of the company, which spans over many decades, so he actually came down from Wisconsin today to answer any questions.
Probably need
Can
to
you
come up a
move
little
up
closer to the microphone.
The
There.
company itself, was that better? Okay.
Yeah,
Did we get most of that, or I need to start over?
I'd go ahead and start over.
Okay,
'cause-
so my name's Sean, obviously. I'm the general manager for Amston here in Indianapolis. I came tonight, I can answer any questions about our business, what we do, who we are, what we are going to do to the facility up there. We've got a lot of exciting things planned for that. This is Michael Rybar. He is one of three brothers, third generation owned company, so he made the trip down from Wisconsin to answer any questions about our company, our ethics, our history, or anything like that. So we should be able to handle any questions anybody has.
I guess my only question is, any fabrication would be minor, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we don't actually manufacture anything. From a service standpoint, we can take anything from if it's a piece of equipment that's been wrecked or something like that, it's going to be fabricated. But yeah, next to manufacturing, that's going to be minor. And we do everything from that to small repairs.
I mean, are they semi-trailers, are they any type of trailer, or?
We're strictly semi-trailers. We don't do much with power units at all, so it could be dry vans, refrigerated trailers, specialized flatbeds, dump trailers, pneumatic tanks, that type of thing. We do not carry an R stamp or anything like that, so we don't weld on hazardous material tankers or anything like that, nor do we intend to.
There won't be a lot of noise pollution?
No.
Okay.
If there ever is, we're primarily a 7:30 to 5:30 operation. There's not going to be any kind of noise in the evenings, no third shift or anything like that.
Everything inside?
Yes, sir, correct, everything inside.
Typically, how many trailers would you have on site, something like, on a site like this?
We could have anywhere from 100 to 150 at any given time. Now, since a lot of what we do is flatbed trailers, so they are stacked together. If you ever see them going on the road, there's flatbed trailers stacked together. So quite a bit of what we do is flatbeds. So even though there might be 150 trailers sitting there, you might only have 75 to 80 that are actually sitting on the ground itself. We want to keep that open because it is part of our business. We don't want to limit that. That's part of what's appealing for us about moving up this way is we're very limited on space where we're at in Indianapolis now, and we like the opportunity up here. We've got space to grow with our business model.
Will everything, maybe this isn't the right question to ask because, you're gonna have to come back, but is there gonna be trailers stacked or stored out front and?
No, and actually, one thing that Michael brought with him today, our businesses believe in being very good tenants, very good neighbors. We run clean facilities. I've often referenced what we do, even though it's semi-trailers, we want it to look like Lexus dealerships, quite honestly. From a high-level overview standpoint, I can tell you that our bid for what we're going to do to work to the facility is actually more than what we're going to spend to buy it. So we're going to put quite a bit of money into it to make it a premier facility. Customer presentation for us is very important. We want a location that we can bring customers to and be proud of, quite honestly. And he actually, our corporate office was built 2 years ago in Wisconsin, and Michael brought a picture of what that looks like. Yeah. That's obviously size-wise much bigger than what we're going to do, but that's about a $10 million facility right there. So we take our business very seriously, even though we are in commercial transportation. We believe in having good, clean, state-of-the-art facilities that are well-run and well-maintained.
Ben, can you
this-
put that under the,
Pass it.
somewhere?
Camera work.
You said that's your Wisconsin facility there?
Yes, that facility was built, they just actually hit about 2 years ago. So like I said, it's not going to be anywhere near that size, but that from a presentation standpoint, that's the kind of facilities we run. They're clean, there's not a lot of junk laying around, even though they are semi-trailers, it's formal, they're parked well. We believe in running businesses that we can be proud to have customers come into, or anybody else for that matter. And that's the same thing that we're going to mirror up here.
Okay. Any other questions?
Give us an idea of how much business you do in a month, like sales-wise, like what kind of activity is going to be going in and out? Sales-wise, if you would call what I would consider gate activity, how many trucks and trailers are going to be coming out of there on a daily basis, it might be, I would love to tell you 3 to 4 a week. That's not the case. It's probably closer to 5 to 10 a month. I mean, ideally, growth is part of the reason we want to come up here. I would like to see 5 to 10 a month just from a financial standpoint, but it's not a situation. We've got trucks and trailers coming in and out all the time. From a service standpoint, you're probably going to be about double that. So if you've got maybe 2 to 3 pieces of equipment coming in and out of there today, I would say that's a good number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, it's a public meeting. Anybody care to step forward and speak? Okay, we'll close the public meeting. Does anybody have any questions for Ben or the applicant?
Ben, I got a couple of questions for you. With the new infrastructure that we've put in on Indianapolis Avenue, the 2 roundabouts, is there a concern with tractor-trailer traffic?
Those roundabouts are designed to accommodate those size vehicles, so it may not seem like they do, but they are designed so that the truck can get around those roundabouts.
There's not a concern of the city with that infrastructure then?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Just want to, you obviously see this come back to you when we get the improvements finalized, working with them, but we are working with them, especially with improvements happening in Indianapolis Avenue, pull the pavement back from the front, add a landscape buffer across the street in the front with some landscaping, make sure we get some of the pavement fixed and or redone, and they will extend the pavement further back, so the areas of higher traffic that are towards the front where they'll be coming in and out to service, that will all be paved. It really will just be the storage area in the back that they're right now proposing for gravel. We're still working on getting that finalized, but that's kind of the general plan right now. So we are making sure that we dress up that front, and it's that front area, as you guys probably know, is not a very large area. So there's really not much chance that they're going to be able to store trailers out front there because it's just not sized appropriately for that.
Thank you. Any other questions for anybody?
Good.
I guess it's motion time.
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance of use request to permit trailer sales and service within the planned business zoning classification, subject to the following condition, that the approval of the variance of use is limited to those trailer sales and services uses proposed by the applicant. Any change in use or increase in the intensity of use by the current or any subsequent owners will require approval of the City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Okay. Motion, we have a second. Kelly?
Okay. Gordon Perry,
Aye.
Bruce Polly,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Chad Kiger, Lori Gross.
Aye.
Motion carried. Good luck, and hope to see you back here in another month or two, and we'll do this again.
We appreciate the opportunity, and honestly, we're very happy. Welcome.
Welcome to
Welcome to
Lebanon.
have you.
We're glad to have you.
Okay, do we have any other items to talk about tonight? Okay, you've had your chance to speak, so I would entertain a motion to.
Motion to adjourn?
Got a motion to adjourn? Got a second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Next meeting is June 3rd, Monday, June 3rd, 2019, 7 PM, right here. Everybody have a good evening.